The first time Jordan Niles held a knife in the Silver Orchid's kitchen, his hands shook. Tonight, they were steadied. The dinner rush was already a low roar beyond the double doors' soft music. Clinking glasses, well-dressed guests laughing over plates that cost more than his weekly grocery bill. Inside the kitchen, it was a different kind of storm. Stainless steel counters glared under white lights. Pans hissed, tickets printed in sharp bursts, and voices rose over one another in clipped commands. Fire table 7. 2 scallops, 1 lamb. Watch that sauce, it's breaking. Who plated this? It looks like trash. Do it again. Jordan stood at his station, shoulders squared, eyes locked on the cutting board. In front of him, marbled short ribs rested after hours of slow smoking, the meat dark and glistening. Beside them sat a bowl of smooth cornbread puree and a pan of collard green juss, rich and glossy. The smells pulled him backward in time to his grandmother's tiny kitchen, to Sunday dinners, to laughter and warmth that no Michelin star could buy. He blinked, focusing. Tonight wasn't about memories. It was the Rising Stars competition. One dish from each junior chef. One chance to show who deserved to move up. One chance to prove that he wasn't just another pair of hands in a kitchen that never truly looked at him. Double quotes. Yo, soul food, came a voice from his left, thick with mockery. You cooking for the judges or for your auntie's cookout? Jordan didn't have to look to know it was Tommy Blake. Blonde hair, perfect teeth, the kind of easy smile that came from never being doubted a day in his life. It's for the competition, Jordan said quietly, slicing the short rib into precise portions. Like everyone else's. Tommy leaned over, sniffing theatrically. Smoked short rib. Cornbread, greens? What's next? You serving Kool-Aid in a wine glass? He let out a loud laugh and elbowed another cook, who snickered on cue. Elena Ruiz, at the pastry station, shot Jordan a quick look. Her eyes said what her mouth couldn't in this kitchen. I know they're wrong. Keep going. Jordan set a slice of short rib on the plate, then another. He'd spent weeks testing this dish-balancing smoke with sweetness, the creaminess of the cornbread with the bitterness of the greens. It wasn't random. It wasn't lazy. Every element had a purpose. Footsteps clicked across the tile. The kitchen quieted a little as Chef Damien Cole approached, his white jacket spotless, his posture straight as a knife. He stopped at Jordan's station and stared down at the half-finished plate. What? He asked. Is this supposed to be? Jordan swallowed. My dish for the competition, chef. Smoked short rib with cornbread puree and collard green juss. Elevated Southern. Damien raised a hand, cutting him off. Elevated? His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Mr. Miles, this is a fine dining restaurant, not a backyard barbecue. A few of the cooks chuckled. Jordan felt the heat creep up his neck, but he kept his voice even. Respectfully, chef, the flavors are balanced. And the presentation. Damien picked up one of the plates, turning it in his hands like it was something he'd found on the floor. Fine dining is about restraint, he said. Precision. Elegant subtlety. This, he sniffed, smells like a diner off the highway. Elena's hand paused mid-piping over a dessert. Jordan caught the tiny wince in her eyes and looked away before it could pull him under. I suggested you do a risotto, Damien went on. Or a classic duck. Something refined. But you never listen, do you? I listen, chef, Jordan said softly. But this is what I do best. It's my voice on a plate. Damien's eyes hardened. Your voice, he repeated. You're not here to express yourself, Jordan. You're here to execute my standards. He set the plate down with a faint clink. Last warning. Change the dish before service. I won't have the guests laughing at us. Again. Jordan stared at the plate. One part of him, the tired, worn-down part, wanted to scrape it all into the trash, grab a risotto pan, and disappear into something safe and bland. Another part, the one that remembered his grandmother's hands guiding his at the stove, refused to move. "I'm keeping the dish, chef," he said quietly. "If I fail, it'll be on my food, not on something that isn't mine." The kitchen seemed to freeze. Someone dropped a spoon. It clattered too loudly on the floor. Damien's jaw flexed. "Bold choice," he said, voice cold. "Let's see how far that attitude gets you." He turned and walked away, barking orders at another station. The noise of the kitchen swallowed his words, but the sting stayed. Elena stepped closer, keeping her voice low. "You sure you want to do this, Jay?" she asked. "You know he's waiting for you to slip." Jordan took a breath and wiped the rim of the plate with the edge of a towel. "He's been waiting since the day I walked in," he said. "If I'm going down as myself." Elena's lips curved into a small smile. "Then make it perfect," she said. "Make it so good he chokes on his own attitude." He let out a short laugh, tension breaking for a second. "Working on it." Beyond the swinging doors, the hum of the dining room rose. Through the small window, Jordan could see glimpses of crystal glasses, candles, white tablecloths. And tonight, someone else, a man in a dark suit, sitting alone at a corner table. His posture straight, his gaze sharp, the staff extra careful around him. Jordan had seen photos of that face in food magazines, in articles about restaurants getting stars or losing them. "Is that?" Elena breathed, following his gaze. "I think so," Jordan replied. "Laurent Duval." The name felt heavy in his mouth. Michelin Judge. Career maker. Career dash ender dot as he watched. The Mater D leaned into Duval's table, almost bowing. The judge nodded once, studying the menu, then looked up toward the kitchen window. For a split second, their eyes met. Jordan's heart skipped. He quickly turned back to his station. "Hey," Elena murmured, "if he's here on a night like this, maybe it's not by accident." "Or maybe it's the worst timing of my life," Jordan muttered. He glanced at the clock. Service for the competition dishes would start any minute. The expeditor called out, "Rising Stars plates in 10. "Get ready." Tommy sauntered past again, glancing down at Jordan's station. "You're really sending that?" He scoffed. "Man, I can't wait to see their faces when they realize the kitchen help made Sunday dinner for a tasting menu." Jordan's grip tightened around his tongs. "I'm a sous chef," he said quietly. Tommy smirked. "Sure. Keep telling yourself that." Jordan didn't answer. He focused on the meat, on the way the knife glided through, revealing the tender interior. He spooned the cornbread puree onto the plate in a smooth, golden swoop, placed the rib on top, and napped it with the collard green juice. He added pickled onions for acidity, microgreens for freshness, a crack of black pepper. Every motion was deliberate, steady, almost calm. 2 plates up for Rising Stars. He called, his voice strong enough to cut through the noise. The expeditor stepped over, eyes sweeping the dish. For a moment, there was no judgment, only observation. "Send them," he said. Tommy let out a low whistle. "All right, then. Let the comedy show begin." The server lifted the plates and disappeared through the doors, out into the glittering dining room. Jordan watched them go until the doors swung shut again. He wiped his hands on his apron, feeling his pulse in his fingers. "This is it," he whispered to himself. To his grandmother, to the part of him that still believed. Whatever happened next. His food was out there, and the whole room was about to have an opinion. The plates landed in the dining room like quiet little bombs. Jordan couldn't see the investors' table from the pass, but he could hear the shift in the room. The low murmur of conversation dipped, then rose again. Silverware clinked. A laugh sharp and ugly cut through the background noise. "Here we go," Tommy muttered, leaning against the counter like he was watching a movie. One of the servers slipped back through the doors, trying to hide a smirk. He bumped Tommy's shoulder and whispered just loud enough for Jordan to hear. "They're already cracking jokes." Jordan's throat went dry. "What did they say?" The server hesitated, then shrugged. "One of them called it—" "What was it?" "Grandma food dressed up for prom," he snorted. "They think they're hilarious." A ripple of laughter spread down the line. Someone repeated the phrase. "Grandma food dressed up for prom," Tommy said, grinning wide. "That's actually good." Jordan stared at the cutting board. The words hit harder than he expected. Grandma food. He thought of his grandmother in her faded apron, humming by the stove, hands moving without recipes, just memory. To him, that wasn't an insult. But the way they said it wasn't about comfort. It was about class. About real food and other food. A few minutes later, Chef Damien swept back into the kitchen, expression already set in disappointment. He didn't have to say anything for Jordan to know. "Well," Damien said, clapping his hands once. The investors had quite a reaction. He stopped at Jordan's station and looked at him like a teacher about to scold a child. One of them actually asked if we were testing out a— what did he call it? He snapped his fingers, pretending to search for the word. "Ah, charity menu. Isn't that something?" Jordan forced himself to meet his eyes. "What did they say about the flavors, chef?" Damien gave a light, mocking laugh. "Flavors?" They didn't get that far. They were too busy asking why we were serving soul food in a restaurant that wants a Michelin star. Tommy laughed out loud. "Told you, man." Elena's jaw tightened. She kept her eyes on her tart shells, fingers moving faster. Damien took a step closer to Jordan. "This is exactly what I was trying to avoid," he said. "You do not bring this kind of nostalgia-driven, heavy dish to a room full of serious diners. They expect finesse. They expect elegance, not backyard picnic food in a suit." "It's not picnic food," Jordan replied quietly. "I built that dish like any other fine plate, chef. Balance, texture, acidity." Damien cut him off with a flick of his wrist. "You built a memory on a plate, Jordan. Maybe that works at a neighborhood pop-up, but not here. Not with them." He jerked his head toward the dining room. "This is a Michelin-chasing kitchen. We do Euro-classic technique. We do refinement. We do not do home cooking masquerading as art." There it was. The line he'd been dancing around all along. Tommy chimed in, voice lazy. "Yeah, man. Customers aren't here for Sunday supper. They're here for something they can't get on every block in the hood." The word hung in the air, sour and heavy. A couple of cooks shifted awkwardly, but said nothing. Jordan felt something twist in his chest. He knew the game. He'd known it since culinary school, since group projects where his dishes were called too ethnic, since judges at competitions told him his flavor profiles were interesting, but maybe better suited for a food truck. He swallowed hard. "My dish belongs here as much as anyone else's," he said, softer now. "It's as technical as anything on this menu." Damien's smile evaporated. "Belongs?" He repeated. "You think because you can smoke meat and make a puree, you can decide what belongs on my menu?" He leaned in, voice dropping. "Let me be very clear, Mr. Miles. This restaurant did just fine before you, and it will do just fine after you. The only reason you're still here is because I thought, maybe, with enough guidance, you'd learn to work within our standards." He straightened, voice rising again so everyone could hear. "But you don't listen. You insist on forcing your background onto plates that weren't made for it." Jordan's fingers dug into the edge of the counter. "My background is part of who I am, chef," he said. Every chef cooks from where they come from. Damien scoffed. Spoken like someone who doesn't understand the difference between art and sentimentality. Elena finally spoke up. Chef, with respect, the structure of his dish is solid. The juice was reduced perfectly. The proteins were cooked. Damien snapped his head toward her. Did I ask for a critique, Chef Ruiz? She clamped her mouth shut, cheeks flushing. He turned back to Jordan. Here's the reality. You are a good pair of hands. You can execute when you're told what to do. But you are not a visionary. You are not leading this kitchen. And if you insist on this, street-food-meets-grandma-supper routine, you will never see anything above that station. The words landed like blows. Good hands. Not a visionary. Street food. I'm not doing street food, Jordan said, the fight drained from his voice. I'm doing my food. Damien gave a weary, performative sigh. Your food is not the problem, he said. Where you insist on putting it is. He stepped back, addressing the whole kitchen. Consider this a lesson for everyone. There are standards for a reason. Not every idea belongs on a fine dining plate, no matter how emotionally attached you are to it. The cooks nodded, some eagerly, some uncomfortably. The message was clear. This isn't just about Jordan's dish. It's about where they all stood on the invisible ladder. Jordan stared down at his station that suddenly felt smaller than ever. Through the tiny window in the door, the dining room glowed. A waiter walked past, carrying empty plates from the investor table. The critic who'd laughed leaned back in his chair, still shaking his head as he spoke. Jordan couldn't hear the words, but he didn't need to. He already knew the script. As he turned away, something else caught his eye. At the far end of the room, in the corner booth, Laurent Duval sat alone. A server approached him with another plate. The same plate. His plate. Jordan blinked. Did Duval get one of my dishes? He asked, barely above a whisper. The runner who'd just come back with trays shrugged. Yeah, he said. Table in the corner asked specifically for another one. Thought it was weird with all the jokes, but whatever. He doesn't look like he's laughing. Jordan pressed a hand against the counter, steadying himself. He requested it? That's what front of house said, the runner replied. Said the man in the booth wanted to try the controversial dish for himself. Tommy snorted. Controversial. That's one word for it. Damien's head snapped toward them. What's this? The judge got a plate, chef, the runner said quickly. They sent one to his table. For the first time that night, Damien's expression faltered. His jaw tightened. Without my approval? The host said he asked for it, chef. Said he'd heard there was discussion about it. Damien's eyes flicked to the window, to where Duval was lifting a forkful of short rib to his mouth. The head chef's face was suddenly careful, calculating. If he hates it, Tommy whispered under his breath. Just loud enough for Jordan to hear. You're done. Jordan watched Duval's face. Though from this distance, it was hard to read. The judge chewed slowly, thoughtfully. No big reaction. No disgust. No visible delight. Just a man tasting, then setting down his fork. The door swung shut again as a server passed through, blocking the view. Back to work, Damien snapped. Service isn't over just because one plate got a pity order. Tickets kept coming. Pans kept hissing. The clock kept ticking. But for Jordan, everything else faded into a low, distant blur. His mind stayed on that corner table, on the man who held more power over his future than anyone in this kitchen would admit. He felt humiliated. He felt exposed, but somewhere far beneath the shame, so deep he could barely touch it, a tiny thought flickered. If someone like Duval wanted a second plate, maybe his food wasn't the problem. Maybe the problem was the room it was forced to live in. Jordan, didn't get a chance to breathe before the next blow came. Service was still moving, and he kept his head down, chopping herbs with careful mechanical motions. But the whispers hadn't stopped. Every few minutes, someone repeated the joke again, like they wanted to make sure he heard it from every direction. "Grandma food," Tommy said under his breath as he passed behind him. "We should serve it with a rocking chair and a gospel choir." A few cooks snickered. Jordan clenched his jaw and kept chopping. His fingers trembled, but he refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. Chef Damien came back down the line, trying to look busy, but clearly watching Jordan. "Miles," he said sharply, "look at me." Jordan looked up. Damien folded his arms. "Tell me, what did you expect today? Honestly, when you chose that dish." Jordan swallowed. "I expected them to taste it before judging it." Damien smirked. "This is fine dining, not a backyard barbecue. Presentation matters. Perception matters. Reputation matters." His voice dropped into a patronizing tone. "You can't walk into a Michelin-level kitchen and decide the rules don't apply to you." Jordan held his stare. "I wasn't trying to change the rules. I was trying to show something new. That's exactly the problem." Damien leaned closer. "You think new means good, but sometimes new just means out of place." Jordan's chest tightened. "With respect, Chef, if this kitchen only does the same thing forever, it will never evolve." Damien's eyes narrowed. "Are you lecturing me about evolution?" Jordan looked down. "No, Chef." "Good," Damien said. "Because evolution happens when someone has vision. And no offense, Miles, but vision requires a level of refinement you haven't learned yet." Tommy snorted. "Or maybe he just doesn't have it." Jordan's jaw clenched. He wanted to say anything, but the words stuck in his throat. He wasn't afraid of Damien. He was afraid of what would happen if he fought back. He couldn't afford to lose this job. This was his shot. His chance. His way out. He forced himself to nod. "Yes, Chef." Damien straightened, voice cold and final. "Good. Next time you cook something, run it through me first. I can't have you embarrassing this restaurant again." Jordan felt the shame sink deeper, burning in his stomach like acid. "Yes, Chef." Damien turned to walk away, but he paused and added one last hit, loud enough for the whole kitchen to hear. "And Miles? Leave the soul food at home next time. This is a professional kitchen." The kitchen froze. The words hung in the air like smoke. Jordan felt them like a slap raw, deliberate, cutting straight into the part of him he cherished most. Elena whispered, "Jordan, I'm so sorry." He didn't answer. He couldn't. He wiped his station clean and kept moving, pretending everything was fine. But inside, something cracked. Duval's plate came back empty. A busser carried it through the kitchen on his way to dish pit, and Jordan's eyes flickered toward it. The plate was wiped clean, no scraps, no untouched elements. Tommy noticed. "Probably just hungry," he said with a mocking grin. "Doesn't mean anything." Jordan didn't respond. But inside, a tiny ember glowed in the darkness. Then the next blow hit harder than all the others. Chef Damien returned from the dining room with an annoyed expression. "Miles!" Jordan looked up. Damien tossed a comment like a knife. "Judge Duval asked who made the dish. I told him it was just a test plate from the line, nothing serious." Jordan blinked. "You didn't tell him it was mine?" Damien shrugged. "Why would I? I'm not going to hand him your name so you can embarrass the restaurant further." Jordan's stomach dropped. "Chef," he asked specifically. "Yes," Damien said bluntly. "And I shut it down." He leaned forward, voice icy. "I am not letting you use a judge to skip the hierarchy in my kitchen." Jordan felt heat rise in his chest, anger, disbelief, humiliation mixing together until it hurt to breathe. "Chef, that's not fair. He wanted to know." "It doesn't matter what he wanted," Damien snapped. "I decide who is worth presenting, not some emotional backstory dish." Jordan stared at him. "It wasn't just—" "Oh, please," Damien interrupted with a harsh laugh. "We all know what it was. A cultural comfort plate pretending to be haute cuisine. That might work on Instagram, but not here." Jordan felt the words hit him like blows. "Chef, you don't even know why I made it." "I don't need to know," Damien said coldly. "I know what belongs on a Michelin tasting table. And Miles, your food doesn't." Jordan's hands curled into fists at his sides. For the first time, he felt something stronger than fear rise in him. Something that didn't want to stay silent anymore. But before he could speak, the doors swung open again. A server rushed in. Chef Judge Duval asked for the chef who made the short rib dish. He wants to speak with him privately. The kitchen went silent. Every head turned toward Jordan. Damien's face drained of color. Tommy's smirk disappeared. Elena whispered, "Jordan." Jordan felt his heart slam against his ribs. He asked again. The server nodded. "Yes, and he said he won't leave until he talks to him." Jordan's world tilted. The dish they laughed at. The dish they mocked. The dish they said didn't belong. A Michelin judge wanted him. Not Damien. Not Tommy. Him. Everything shifted. But Damien's voice cut through the moment. Sharp as a blade. "You are not going out there." Jordan inhaled, steady and slow, feeling the spark inside turn into a flame. "Chef," he said quietly. "Clearly, I'm going." Damien's eyes widened. "If you walk out this door, don't expect to walk back in as my sous chef." Jordan straightened his jacket, lifted his chin, and said, "Then I'll walk back in as something better." He stepped toward the door. The entire kitchen held its breath. The moment Jordan stepped out of the kitchen, everything changed. The noise, the laughter, the insults, all of it faded behind him as he followed the server toward the private booth. His stomach twisted with nerves, but for the first time all day, he felt light, almost free. He didn't know what Judge Duval would say, but he knew one thing. The judge had asked for him. No one else dot when Jordan arrived at the booth. Duval stood up as if greeting an equal. "So," he said gently, "you are the one who created that dish?" Jordan nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." "I did." Duval smiled. "Sit, I want to talk to you." Jordan sat across from him, hands clasped tightly in his lap. Duval leaned forward. "Your plate carried history, emotion. I could taste every memory in those flavors." He paused. "Tell me who taught you to cook like that." Jordan swallowed. "My grandmother. She taught me that food is a story, and that if I wanted the world to hear me, I needed to cook with my heart." Duval nodded, his eyes warm. "And you did?" He reached for his notebook. "I'll be honest with you, Jordan. This dish, it belongs in a Michelin restaurant. Not because it is fancy. Not because it fits a mold." He tapped the table lightly. "But because it is yours. And that is what fine dining needs." Jordan felt his eyes burn. "Thank you, sir. That means more than you know." Duval closed the notebook. "Don't let anyone convince you that your story is too heavy or too simple. They only say that when they fear something, they cannot imitate." Jordan blinked, stunned. Duval stood and extended his hand. "You have a future far beyond this kitchen. Do not let small minds shrink it." Jordan stood slowly and shook his hand. "I won't," he whispered when Jordan walked back into the kitchen. The room froze. Every cook, every server, every critic turned to look at him. Damien stood stiffly, anger and fear warring in his expression. What did he say? Damien asked sharply. Jordan removed his apron, folding it neatly. He said my dish belongs in a Michelin restaurant. The kitchen erupted in murmurs, shock, disbelief, admiration. Tommy's face drained of color. Elena covered her smile with the back of her hand. Damien stammered, Well, that's just one judge. It doesn't mean. It means everything, Jordan said quietly. And you knew it. The restaurant owner stepped forward, having overheard the conversation. Chef Miles, he said carefully, addressing Jordan using a title he had never been given before. I'd like you to present your full menu vision next week. Judge Duval spoke highly of you. Damien's mouth fell open. You're promoting him over me? The owner eyed him coldly. You hid talent in your kitchen. You belittled him in front of critics. And you lied to a Michelin inspector. Consider yourself suspended until further review. Jordan didn't smile, but he stood taller. Not out of pride, but relief. Elena walked over quietly. I knew you had it in you, she whispered. Jordan nodded. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't. He walked out of the Silver Orchid that night with tired feet, but a light heart. The city air felt different, cleaner, wider, full of possibility. His phone buzzed. A message from his grandmother. How did it go, baby? Did they taste your heart today? Jordan typed back through blurry eyes. Yes, Grandma. They finally did. Weeks passed, and the restaurant transformed. His dish became the most requested item on the menu. New chefs, inspired by his courage, started adding dishes rooted in their own cultures. Customers came not just for food, but for stories on a plate. And Damien? He faded into silence, a reminder that arrogance has a short shelf life. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Jordan visited his grandmother. He cooked the award-winning dish in her kitchen, the same kitchen where it all began. She tasted it slowly, her eyes filling with pride. She said, smiling. You didn't just honor me. You honored every cook who was ever told their food wasn't good enough. Jordan swallowed hard. I wouldn't be here without you. She touched his cheek. No, baby. You're here because you never let them take your flavor away. That night, Jordan sat outside alone, looking at the stars. In the soft glow of the moon, he whispered to himself, They laughed at my dish, but they couldn't silence my soul. He didn't need their approval anymore. He didn't need their permission. He had found his voice, and the world finally heard it.